There's a moment when you realize you're making more money than your parents ever dreamed of, and somehow you're more broke than they were. That moment usually happens at 3 in the morning, when you're staring at your bank account on your phone, trying to figure out where the hell it all went. You're not stupid. You didn't blow it on drugs or gambling. You just lived your life. You upgraded a few things. You moved to a nicer place. You started eating out more often because you deserved it. You bought a car that didn't break down every other month. You subscribed to a few services because what's $10 here and there? And somehow, despite making 3 times what your father made at your age, you've got less in the bank than he did. Welcome to the most successful con in modern history. It doesn't have a flashy name. It doesn't make the news. But it's stolen more wealth from the middle class than any stock market crash or recession ever could. They call it lifestyle creep, but that sanitized term doesn't capture what it really is. It's a slow-motion robbery, and you're the one holding the gun to your own head. Let me tell you how this works. The trap doesn't announce itself. It doesn't kick down your door. It slides in through the cracks, wearing a smile, promising you that you've earned this. You get a raise. Maybe it's $5,000 a year. Maybe it's $15,000. Doesn't matter. What matters is what happens next. Your brain does something interesting. It doesn't calculate that raise across 12 months. It doesn't think, oh, that's $400 extra per month. No. Your brain sees that annual number and starts spending it immediately. You've been driving a beat-up Honda Civic for 6 years. The AC barely works. The seats are torn. Every morning, you look at the gleaming cars in the parking lot and you tell yourself, someday. Well, someday just arrived. You got the raise. You can afford a nicer car now. Not something crazy, just something respectable. A used luxury sedan. Your payment only goes up $200 a month. You can handle that. You've got the raise. Except you don't just buy the car. Because a luxury car needs luxury insurance. And it drinks premium gas. And when something breaks, you're not going to Manny's garage anymore. You're going to the dealership where they charge you $200 just to plug in the diagnostic computer. But you don't think about that on the day you sign the papers. You're sitting in leather seats that smell like success, and the engine purrs like a satisfied cat, and you feel like you've finally made it. Then you look at your apartment. It was fine when you were younger. It was fine when you were struggling. But now? Now you're pulling up in a luxury car to a building where the hallway smells like old curry, and someone's always arguing in apartment C. It doesn't match anymore. You're making good money now. You can afford to move somewhere better. Not somewhere extravagant, just somewhere that reflects where you are in life. A place with a doorman, maybe a gym in the building. The rent is $800 more a month, but you got a raise. You can handle it. And that's how it starts. That's how they get you. Because you didn't just upgrade your car and your apartment. You upgraded your life, and your life has overhead. Your new apartment is in a nicer neighborhood, which means the restaurants are nicer, which means dinner isn't $15 anymore. It's $40. You're not going to show up to your corporate job in the same wrinkled clothes you wore when you were broke. You need a wardrobe that matches your position. You need to look the part. And when your friends suggest going away for the weekend, you can't be the one who says no because of money. Not anymore. You've got a career now. You're doing well. You can afford to live a little. Except you can't. Not really. Because that $5,000 raise, it's gone. All of it. Evaporated into thin air. And you're not living better. You're living different. You traded your old stress for new stress. You traded the anxiety of not having enough for the anxiety of maintaining what you have. You thought you were climbing out of the hole. But the hole just got deeper and the walls got steeper, and now you're trapped in a lifestyle you can't afford to escape. This isn't new. This pattern has been playing out for nearly a century. But to understand how we got here, you have to go back to when it all began. Back to the moment when someone figured out that the best way to control people isn't to keep them poor, It's to keep them comfortable enough to stay in line, but hungry enough to keep working. The year was 1928. America was drunk on prosperity. The stock market was a rocket ship to the moon, and everyone was getting rich. Families who'd never owned a share of anything in their lives were taking out loans to buy stocks on margin. Secretaries were giving investment tips to their bosses. Shoeshine boys were reading the ticker tape. The party was going to last forever. And then it didn't. October 1929, Black Tuesday. The market didn't just crash, it evaporated. 16 million shares traded in a single day. Fortunes, built over decades, vanished in hours. Men in expensive suits stood on street corners, holding signs that read, "We'll work for food." The bread lines stretched around city blocks. Families who'd been middle class last week were living in shanty towns made of cardboard and scrap metal. They called them Hoovervilles, after the president who promised prosperity was just around the corner. But here's what they don't teach you in school. Here's the part that matters. The Great Depression didn't just destroy wealth, it destroyed a way of thinking. For more than a decade, an entire generation learned to be suspicious of comfort. They learned to save everything. They washed and reused aluminum foil. They saved pieces of string. They bought clothes that would last forever and repaired them until the fabric fell apart. They viewed luxury not as a reward, but as a warning sign, because they'd seen what happens when you live beyond your means. They'd watched their neighbors lose everything. Then the war came, World War II, and suddenly factories that had been idle for years were running 3 shifts. Women who'd never worked outside the home were building bombers. Money flowed again. But the Depression generation didn't spend it. They couldn't. The fear was too deep. They saved every penny because they knew winter was always coming, and that created a problem for the people in charge. See, the machine doesn't work if people save. The machine needs consumption. It needs people buying things constantly, endlessly, forever. An economy built on saving is an economy that shrinks. And shrinking economies don't make the people at the top richer. They needed to break that Depression-era mindset. They needed to convince a traumatized generation that it was safe to spend again, safe to want things, safe to buy things. So they created a new America. The 1950s didn't just happen. They were designed, engineered. Every picture-perfect suburban home, every 2-car garage, every smiling housewife in a kitchen full of chrome appliances. It was propaganda. Sophisticated, seductive propaganda. They called it the American dream, and they sold it so well that we're still buying it 70 years later. Think about what they did. They took millions of men coming home from war, men who'd slept in mud and watched their friends die, and they told them, "You deserve comfort. You earned it. Here's a cheap loan to buy a house. Here's a job in a factory or an office. Here's a car. Here's a television. Here's a future." And those men who'd seen hell, who'd lived through the Depression and the war, they wanted to believe it. They wanted to believe there was something better waiting, so they bought in. But here's the trick. Here's the brilliant, insidious trick. They didn't sell these men luxury. They sold them necessity. The house wasn't extravagant. It was modest. The car wasn't fancy. It was practical. The television wasn't frivolous. It was the family gathering around together. They made consumption feel responsible. They made spending feel like building a life. And it worked. Boy, did it work. Consumer spending in the 1950s exploded. Credit cards were invented. Installment plans became normal. The idea that you should save up to buy something started to feel old-fashioned, quaint. Your grandparents saved. But you? You were modern. You were building a future. And building a future meant buying things now and paying for them later. The madmen on Madison Avenue understood something profound about human psychology. They understood that people don't want to buy products. They want to buy a version of themselves. You don't buy a car. You buy the person you become when you drive that car. You don't buy a house. You buy the life you will live in that house. They stopped selling things and started selling identities. The advertising from that era is almost quaint now. A man in a suit, holding a pipe, standing next to a car. The tagline promises confidence, success, respect. A woman in pearls, smiling in a kitchen, surrounded by appliances. The tagline promises modernity, ease, the admiration of her friends. They were selling a very specific message. That you could buy your way into a better class. That consumption was the path to respect. And for a while, it actually worked. The post-war boom was real. Wages rose. Union jobs paid well. A man could work at a factory, support a family, own a home, and retire with a pension. The middle class swelled. The American dream wasn't just propaganda. For millions of people, it was real life. But here's what happened. The system created a trap without realizing it. They taught people to define success by what they owned. They taught people to measure their worth by their lifestyle. And once you make lifestyle the metric of success, you've created an engine that can never be satisfied. Because there's always a better car, there's always a bigger house, there's always a nicer vacation. The horizon keeps moving, and people keep chasing it. By the 1980s, something had shifted. The compact between workers and corporations started to break. Pensions disappeared. Job security evaporated. Wages stagnated. The factory jobs that paid middle-class wages moved overseas. The union power that protected workers crumbled. But the cultural programming didn't change. People still believed that success meant a certain kind of lifestyle. They still wanted the house and the car and the vacations. They just couldn't afford it anymore. So they borrowed. Credit card debt exploded. Home equity loans became normal. People started using their houses like ATM machines, pulling out cash every time the value went up. They were spending tomorrow's money to maintain today's lifestyle. And for a while, that worked too, until it didn't. 2008, the financial crisis. The whole house of cards collapsed. Millions lost their homes. Retirement accounts evaporated. Unemployment spiked. And people finally started asking the question they should have asked decades earlier. How did we get here? How did we end up so deep in debt? How did we become so fragile? The answer is lifestyle creep. But it's not just a personal failing. It's a feature of the system. The entire economy is built on the assumption that you'll keep spending more every time you make more. Every institution is designed to facilitate it. Your bank will pre-approve you for loans you can't afford. Your credit card company will raise your limit without you asking. Every app and website is optimized to make spending feel frictionless. One click and it's on the way. They've removed every barrier between wanting something and having it. Except the barrier of paying for it. That comes later. That's future you's problem. Let me tell you what lifestyle creep looks like in practice. You can't see it happening because it never announces itself. It's not one big decision. It's 1,000 tiny decisions that feel completely reasonable in the moment. You're 25. You're making $35,000 a year. You live in a cramped apartment with a roommate. You take the bus to work. You pack your lunch. You buy store-brand groceries. Your phone is 2 generations old. Your clothes are from Target. Your idea of a fancy dinner is Chipotle. And you're fine. You're not happy about it, but you're surviving. You're paying your bills. You've even got a little bit in savings. Life is tight, but it's manageable. Then you get a promotion. $45,000 a year. $10,000 raise. You feel like you've won the lottery, and immediately you start spending it. First thing, you move out. Get your own place. Because you're not a kid anymore. You're a professional. You can't be living with a roommate at your age. The new apartment is only $400 more per month. That's nothing. You got a $10,000 raise. That's $833 a month. You can afford 400 of that. Except it's not just 400. Because you need furniture now. Your old stuff was college garbage. Futons and bookcases made of particle board. But this is your place. Your first real adult apartment. You need real furniture. Nothing crazy. Just some decent pieces from IKEA. Maybe one nice item. A real couch. You put it on a credit card. You'll pay it off. It's fine. And now that you have a nice apartment, you start inviting people over. Which means you need to stock your kitchen. Real knives. Real pots. A coffee maker that doesn't taste like burnt plastic. You're not eating ramen anymore. You're cooking real meals, which means shopping at the nicer grocery store. Because you can taste the difference between the cheap meat and the good stuff. It's only $20 more per week. That's nothing. Your phone is falling apart. You've had it for 3 years, and the battery dies after 2 hours. You need a new one anyway. And the newest model isn't that much more expensive if you spread the payments out over 2 years. It's only $30 a month. You can handle that. Your car is getting old. The check engine light has been on for 6 months. The mechanic says it needs work. Serious work. You could fix it for $2,000. Or you could use that $2,000 as a down payment on something newer. Something reliable. Something that won't leave you stranded on the highway. The payment is only $250 a month. But think about what you're saving in repairs. It's actually fiscally responsible. You look at your wardrobe. Most of your clothes are from when you were broke. T-shirts with band logos. Jeans with holes that aren't fashionable. Shoes that are falling apart. You've got a real job now. You need to look professional. You go shopping. You buy 3 new outfits. Quality stuff. It costs more, but it'll last longer. That's an investment. Your friends want to go on a trip. Just a long weekend. Fly to Vegas. Split a rental house. It's only $600 total. You haven't taken a vacation in 2 years. You deserve this. You work hard. What's the point of making money if you never enjoy it? And just like that, the raise is gone. All of it. Every penny. You didn't buy anything extravagant. You didn't go crazy. You just made reasonable upgrades to your life. But reasonable upgrades have overhead. And overhead compounds. That apartment that was $400 more per month, it needs utilities. Higher utilities because it's bigger, and renter's insurance. And now you're in a nicer area, so you feel like you should try the restaurants nearby. Just once in a while. Special occasions. Except special occasions start happening more often. That new car payment, it comes with higher insurance, and the gas mileage isn't as good as you thought. And you need to get it serviced at the dealership because it's under warranty. That phone payment is automatic. You don't even notice it until you look at your bills and realize you're paying $30 a month for a device that will be obsolete in 2 years. The clothes wear out. Not immediately, but faster than you expected. Turns out, quality doesn't mean longevity anymore. It just means expensive. So you need to replace them. And now that you've gotten used to dressing nicely, you can't go back to the Target clearance rack. You have standards now. 6 months pass. You get your annual review. Another raise. $3,000 this year. You feel good about it until you look at your bank account and realize you've got less saved now than you did before the first raise. How is that possible? You're making $18,000 more per year than you were 2 years ago. $18,000. That's life-changing money. That's supposed to be security. That's supposed to be savings and investments and breathing room. But there is no breathing room. You're paycheck to paycheck again. Living in a nicer apartment, driving a nicer car, wearing nicer clothes, but somehow more broke than when you had nothing. That's lifestyle creep. That's the trap. And the sick thing is, you can't even explain to people why you're broke. Because if you tell someone you're struggling financially and then they see your apartment and your car and your clothes, they think you're lying. They think you're bad with money. They don't understand that you're not spending recklessly. You're spending normally. You're spending the way everyone around you spends. You're just trying to live a decent life. But decent keeps getting more expensive. Because the system is rigged to extract every penny you make. Every time you get a raise, 100 companies are waiting to sell you an upgrade. Your streaming services multiply. Your subscriptions pile up. Your monthly expenses creep higher and higher, and you don't notice because it happens slowly. $10 here, $20 there. Little charges that barely register individually but collectively devour your income. The real genius of lifestyle creep is that it doesn't feel like a trap when you're in it. It feels like progress. You're moving up in the world. You're rewarding yourself for hard work. You're living the life you're supposed to live. Every upgrade feels justified. Every purchase feels reasonable. You're not being frivolous. You're not being irresponsible. You're just being normal. And that's the problem. Normal is engineered to keep you broke. Think about what normal means now. Normal means having a smartphone that costs $1,000. Normal means paying for Netflix and Spotify and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus and HBO Max. Normal means eating out multiple times a week because you're too tired to cook. Normal means buying coffee every morning because making it at home doesn't taste as good. Normal means upgrading your car every few years. Normal means taking vacations you put on credit cards. Normal means buying clothes you don't need because they're on sale. Normal means spending money on things that didn't exist 20 years ago and calling them necessities. Previous generations didn't have to resist this many opportunities to spend money. The infrastructure of consumption wasn't as sophisticated. If you wanted to buy something, you had to go to a store. You had to pull out cash or write a check. There was friction. There was time to reconsider. Now you can spend $1,000 from your bed at 2 a.m. without ever putting on pants. They've removed every barrier. They've made spending feel like nothing. And they've made not spending feel like deprivation. That's the real psychological trick. They've convinced you that choosing not to upgrade your lifestyle is the same as failing. That if you're not constantly improving your standard of living, you're falling behind. That frugality isn't wisdom, it's poverty. Your coworkers lease luxury cars and you wonder what's wrong with you that you're still driving your paid-off Honda. Your friends go on expensive vacations and you feel embarrassed to say you can't afford it. Your social media feed is full of people living amazing lives, eating at amazing restaurants, wearing amazing clothes, and you start to believe that's normal, that everyone is doing it, that you're the only one struggling. So you fake it. You spend money you don't have to look like you're keeping up, and everyone else is doing the same thing. All of you pretending to be richer than you are. All of you drowning in private while smiling in public.